Susan Smith, Tim Powers, Robin MacLachlan. Thanks for being with us as our coverage continues here. And one last chance to chat about what we've heard so far today. The campaigns have launched. Let me start there. We know what they wanted to do today. Were they successful in doing it as leaders and getting the messages out? What did we hear?
I think they were. I mean, this is a moment that they've all prepared for. So they have all set the tone that they wanted to set for day one of the campaign. The Prime Minister outlined his agenda and his positioning and his slogan. Mr. Scheer wanted to turn the focus onto the SNC issue. He will eventually, I think, outline what his campaign is going to be about, but he's pointed it on one issue today for the framing. Same with Mr. Singh and the others. So they want to get off to a strong, positive start. They all want to then go into a stronghold or a potential stronghold for them to rally the troops and really get people excited about the next 40 days ahead.
What sort of dominates the conversation today, do you think, Tim, in terms of,
it's
supposed to be an issues day, and we're going to talk about that, but it's also what's in the news, right?
Yeah, it's hard not to believe that the Globe story about the latest to-ings and fro-ings in the SNC and the RCMP's apparent inability because of blocking the receiving from the clerk to get information doesn't dominate. I mean, it certainly was the first question the Prime Minister got asked, so that's going to set a bit of the frame. That will, who knows how long that carries forward. It's probably not the start the Prime Minister wanted to have that back in the news. He will try and bridge out of that. As Susan said, Andrew Scheer's team, I think, will look to keep that more front and center. I think you're going to see Andrew Scheer try and break away from that a little bit himself and focus on economic issues. I thought Mr. Singh did well from what I saw today. I mean, he appears to be more comfortable than he's often described as being. He's going to have to be comfortable because he's going to have to answer a lot of uncomfortable questions over the next little while. But yeah, I think tonight and tomorrow will be about SNC-Lavalin going into the weekend. To be determined what the narrative will be.
Right, Robin, what do you think? Maybe pick up with Mr. Singh, and his launch seemed to really focus on what he probably needed to do, which was to really get into some of the specific issues that the NDP wants to convince Canadians they can best represent them on.
And as we talked about before, it's all about framing today. And the Prime Minister, of course, wanted to frame this as a choice either between going backwards to Stephen Harper's policies with Mr. Singh or the Liberals as the only alternative. On the flip side, Jagmeet Singh started off by saying that if you want things done differently in Ottawa, tapping into some of the frustration Canadians have with what they see in Ottawa, you have to vote differently, you have to choose differently. And that's him trying to break into that kind of blue door, red door narrative that we see at the start of this campaign. And what he also tried to do was play on some of the big, bold ideas the NDP has for this campaign. We all know in 2015 it was the Liberals that came out with bold ideas, and the NDP got, by many accounts, outflanked on the left. So he talked about head-to-toe pharmacare and medical care, the biggest historic expansion of healthcare, and he did it by using specific local examples, people he had met, a pregnant woman who had been a cancer survivor, and that's an old trick of trying to localize things but also personalize them. But he also talked about how you're going to pay for that. Justin Trudeau wants to talk about how Andrew Scheer is going to cut taxes for the wealthy. Well, it's Jagmeet Singh saying he's going to raise taxes on the wealthiest with a wealth tax on those of $20 million or more. So I think that's the bold proposals you're going to see from the NDP.
Notwithstanding that, I think it's we know what the two parties that the polls suggest are leading, the Tories and Conservative, they want it to be about each other. Yeah. Right? That's what we heard today, is that Justin Trudeau talked about Andrew Scheer and Conservatives, and Andrew Scheer talked about Justin Trudeau and Liberals.
Yeah, and that's what, I mean, from the Liberal perspective, that's what Choose Forward is about, and that's an easy concept for people to understand because Stephen Harper and Stephen Harper's ways weren't all that long ago. And we have the evidence of the premiers. We've got Ford, we've got Kenny, we've got Palliser again, we've got others, Scott Moe, who are continuing to carry that banner. And as my friend Tim has said, and I will give him credit again, Andrew Scheer is kind of the baby brother of all those guys. And he hasn't really carved a path or demonstrated that he would be anything but that. And I think that's Mr. Scheer's challenge, because the Liberals are positioning him that way, but he hasn't been able to position himself anything different.
How does he fight that narrative, Tim, that it's a vote for the Conservatives and Andrew Scheer is a step backwards?
Well, I think he needs to tackle it head on and focus hard, as he apparently is going to be doing, on the economic opportunity you your family will benefit from. I think he still needs to come out and when the issue comes up again, because it will, around the matter of his personal evolution on thinking around same-sex marriage, that he does give that some more commentary. But I don't think he can just be worried about becoming a prisoner of the Liberal narrative. He's got to perform very well, because he generally still is a blank slate to the Canadian public, which can be his advantage. And I think he's got to find a way to turn Justin Trudeau's slogan about looking forward into something about, well, of course, Justin Trudeau doesn't want to look backward, because look what the last year and a half has been like for him. So, I think he's got to do a little bit of that, but he won't win if he's solely focused on Trudeau and Liberals. He has to show that he is a capable person who could be the Prime Minister of Canada.
One of the questions that Jagmeet Singh was facing today was how to stop an erosion of progressive support going other places, and yet we're hearing from Elizabeth May saying things like, make the choice you want. This is probably going to be a minority parliament. Don't get scared into voting for another party to try and stop somebody else. Vote for what you want. How does he deal with that kind of narrative that, don't be afraid to look at other people than the NDP, because it seems to be what's happening in the polls. He's got to try and capture those people back.
Well, it's a narrative that the NDP has owned for a very long time. Jagmeet Singh and the NDP welcome people making the choice for what they want to vote for. Vote for what you believe in and the person that will look out for you. So we have very leader-centric campaigns now. We have leaders tours that, of course, the media focus on. So what Canadians look at is who do the leaders seem to represent? Who will they fight for? So I think that that's a frame that the NDP is very comfortable with, because you see it in the ads they've already released, that Jagmeet Singh, he's a fighter. They have images of him in a boxing ring, but talking about fighting for the issues that in the Quebec ad, Quebecers care about, and then in, of course, the English ad, the progressives care about. So what I think we're going to see now is there's a lot more scrutiny on the Greens. And I think that Elizabeth May this week, issuing probably a record number of clarifications for any political party in a week, are seeing, I think, the effects of some of that scrutiny.
You may want to clarify that.
But I think she's going to have to prove that she truly is a progressive beyond the climate change fight. We all know she's in the climate change fight, and that's a good thing. But
the Greens really are a bit of a blank slate for everybody, right? The issues come back to them now. She's been talking about it for years, about climate change, and now it seems to be a little more prevalent in the public consciousness. So it's kind of, and now people are associating that with the Greens, and there's a new audience for that. But what else do the Greens stand for?
Well, this is it, and I think this is very important. And the level of scrutiny both on Ms. May and on her campaign team, her candidates. We've already seen issues with candidates who have been anti-abortion, and they have anti-abortion statements. She stuck her foot in it, as Robin alluded to earlier this week, on that issue from a socially progressive side. In the past, it's always and only been about Elizabeth May, but if she wants to be credible, she's going to have to, I think, kind of moderate her natural tendencies to just say whatever it is she thinks. And I think they're going to have to keep a close eye on the folks on the ground, because if they want to present themselves as a credible national alternative, either in third or fourth place, they need to make sure that that's the kind of party and that's the face they're putting forward.
Let's finish up our conversation, Tim, on where we see the leaders go now. We're going to see a lot of them in Quebec, Ontario, and British Columbia. How come?
That's where the contests are. They're a variety of different contests. I think this week you'll probably get a bit of the traditional hit the whole country once, because there is an expectation of that national parties do that. Then after that, it will hone in to those specific ridings. You might see some time spent by Justin Trudeau and Andrew Scheer in different parts of Atlantic Canada. The Liberals hold all the seats there. Atlantic Canada, of course, was the place where the Liberals were able to hold on in their worst period.
All 32 seats.
But also in 2011 in their worst period. And I think there's a lot of IOUs to be paid there. So I suspect he and Scheer, Prime Minister and Scheer, will be there. But national tour, then very focused on seats that can be won and seats that need to be held.
Robin?
Well, for the NDP on where they're going to go, you're going to see the NDP, have to shore up the seats that they hold, the incumbents, while also tapping into some of the seats they lost in 2015 in traditional NDP strongholds. So St. John's East in Newfoundland was shut out of Newfoundland and Atlantic Canada last time around. That's a seat that Jack Harris, the NDP's former MP and current candidate, has held for a long time. He's a high-profile candidate there. But in particular in Ontario, the Ontario NDP is strong in southwestern Ontario, and there's a lot of growth opportunities that have never been on NDP target seats under Jagmeet Singh. So I think you're going to see him use the bus for a concerted period of time this week, and then in Vancouver Island and Lower Mainland BC. Those are some priority areas for the NDP.
All right, Susan?
I wonder when they're going to go to New Brunswick. There'll be some big foofra there because they haven't made it. The Prime Minister will cross the country. He'll cross the country many times. Starting off in BC, he will be in the battleground places and spending a lot of time, I think, in Ontario and Quebec. There are a lot of votes in Quebec. He'll also go where it's hard for Liberals. He'll go to Alberta and he'll go to Saskatchewan, where it's tough for Liberals there. But to demonstrate that he's there for all Canadians. There are voters there. There are people that vote and support Liberal there. And at the end of the day, as he has said before, the Prime Minister is the Prime Minister for all Canadians. So you'll see that. But they will spend, all of them will spend their time where they think they can get seats.
All right, thanks for spending time with us. Appreciate it. We'll talk again during the campaign. Thank you all.
Thank you.